Pitstop, what's going on? This is Andrew Pitlock, and on today's video, we are doing another live stream conversation. Now, our guest today, I have been pretty excited for a few weeks now to be having on here, and that is because in my eyes, he's a bit of a local legend. So I'm bringing in George Kruk, owner of Kruk Cards. Kruk Cards is a sports card and sports memorabilia company that has been around in the buying and selling game since 1986. And it's actually based out of my hometown, which is Rochester, Michigan. Now, I have actually, funny enough, never met George. So this is going to be our first conversation. However, I did go to high school with two of George's sons, and they helped facilitate this. So I appreciate that out of you two. And without further ado, I'm pretty excited for this. I think George is going to be an absolute wealth of knowledge for all of us. And here he is right now, George Kruk.
Thank you, Andrew.
George, how are you doing?
Thanks for those kind words.
Absolutely. George is the owner of Kruk Cards, and Kruk Cards has almost 300,000 sales established on eBay, which is absolutely a ridiculous number. How far away are you guys from 300,000?
I think we're around 297. I think we're a little bit short. So we'll keep on grinding to get there. It gets a little harder because you got to get a new positive feedback from every new customer. And so we're going to get there eventually.
Right on. Yeah. That number is so when do you guys start right in, was it 1998?
98. We've been around for over 20 years now. And, we started off advertising an SCD, and you put all your stuff in an SCD ad, and you send that stuff into SCD, and then you take the phone calls, and then you evolved into sending out newsletters to everybody. And then we embraced eBay, and that's just all part of the process of, everything goes on eBay. So we just decided to put everything on eBay, let their search money work for us. And now we're at, we used to be like, 80% eBay and 20% like wholesale. And now we're probably maybe 40% eBay, 30%, 35% Amazon. And then, that are 10, 15% of our sales comes from, wholesale and selling to the mass markets.
Okay. So what does wholesale selling look like for you guys then? I'm curious. I didn't even expect that to be.
Well, we'll sell a lot of stuff to guys that grade cards. So we'll just sell a lot of unopened stuff that we accumulate. We'll get deals, and we'll accumulate unopened stuff from the mid 80s, late 80s, and we'll get some newer stuff. We'll get deals that we know are, guys that want to, grade stuff, so we'll sell a lot of stuff to the graders, basically stuff that we just don't have the time and the people to deal with going through all these, small sets and stuff. And, we don't have the eye for, finding all these PSA 10s and stuff. So we just decide there's a lot of stuff we're just going to wholesale out. And then we also go ahead and we sell stuff to the mass markets, repackagers who go ahead and they'll take, we'll sell them millions of commons, and they'll repackage them and put them in, Target and Walmart and the mass markets. And we do that to, people in America, people in Canada. And so that's another small.
Interesting.
Part. So we'll sell, we'll have like a 10 pallet load that goes out to these guys, or 5 pallets worth of, hockey commons or something like that.
So you guys will sell to distributors that eventually take those boxes to the Targets, Walmarts, and Myers of the world?
Yeah. Well, they'll repackage them. They'll repackage it, put them in clamshells. They'll put a nice star on the top, put a star on the bottom, and they'll put it in a clamshell, and then they'll repackage it to the mass markets.
Okay. Fascinating. Okay. After 30 years, it makes sense that you find out every different nook and cranny and different way to make money in the sports card and memorabilia world.
So many different ways. Yep. And just like all you new guys showing me how to, chase down the product in Target and all the breaking and the rips. That's just it's all new to me too. So it's just kind of like.
Sure. Yeah. It's a living being almost, the different means of making money in this and all this. I was just telling George earlier about the campouts that I was partaking in at the Myers, Walmarts, Targets of the world, and just how ridiculous things were getting. And I was mentioning the fact that it's almost we were lucky that there weren't more violent incidences like the standout incident that kind of halted everything, because tensions were high. I'm telling you, every Friday, Saturday at Target and Walmart and Meijer, there were lines of 30 plus people. And anytime where you're seeing people throwing and dedicating hours of their life towards a position in line, people are going to get territorial, and a lot of people were showing respect to that. So it's crazy, but that's a pretty. Go ahead.
You see how people fight for a free T-shirt at a sporting event.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Right? So
yeah, I mean, I've seen plenty of people getting kicked out of Pistons games. I used to work in minor league baseball too, and same thing there. I mean, rowdy college kids going after a free T-shirt. You can only imagine.
Absolutely.
But that serves as a great segue into one of our first talking points here, which is going to be, I'm just going to kind of hand off the floor to you. So you guys first opened your doors in 1987. Wow, you've been at this for a while. And I was hoping you could kind of explain to me what 1986 was looking like for you. So let's say you're 5 or 6 months out from officially establishing Kruk Cards. What was that looking like for you?
Well, I kind of had started off. I mean, it probably started off in 1984. I can remember even buying rack cases of 84 Topps baseball, opened those up, and then making sets. Probably got like $13 into a set, and then you sell it for like $16, $17 a set, and you feel like you're killing it. And so I would do that as a kid. And then you also had, which was cool back then, you had the send-in offer. You could send in, for I think it was like $2. You get 20 cards from Topps. You tell them what 20 cards you wanted. So I always wanted Matting League rookies, then you just get that or 19 guys. So you'd send that into Topps, and so I ended up with a whole bunch of piles and piles of Matting League rookies. And then that was like in 84. 1986, I think I was a senior in high school. Started going to a couple card shows and set up. Really didn't know what I was doing at all, but the market was hot. And then in 86, I went to Michigan State, started off there, bought a deal on campus, for like $200 and was able to sell it for $2,000. So that kind of got me going. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. The baby boomers were coming around. They wanted all kinds of Mickey Mantle cards. They wanted the Clementes and the Koufaxes, and that stuff was appreciating like 30% a month is what it seemed like. It was going crazy. And it was similar to the way things are now. I think, and it was only baseball cards at that time. And then all of a sudden it seemed like as you get into the early 90s, it became, football cards were hot. I mean, Joe Montana rookies were only like $3, $4. And it didn't make sense for a guy going to all these multiple Super Bowls to only have his rookie card be worth $3, $4. So you load up on Montana rookies, you buy a bunch of that, and that took off. And you could buy, and then all of a sudden, then after football took off, then basketball took off, and then hockey takes off, and then golf takes off. And I did really well buying some golf cases back in the day, some 81 Donruss golf and 82 Donruss golf. You could get that stuff for, $5, $10 a box. And then, 3 months later, you're selling it for $50 a box. So that kind of got me going. And then, I did it all the way through college. In the summers, I just, worked full time doing cards. Got out of college in 91, and it was just a terrible job market. And so I just kept doing this. But that was the beginning of when things were starting to fall apart. Like I can remember, like I saw some of your questions. I can remember 90, 91 Upper Deck French hockey. I had cases in my apartment. I had like 4 cases, and they were like, I could have got $4,000. It was on Sportsnet. That was kind of like the internet of cards back in the day. It was a thing called Sportsnet, and all of us card dealers would talk back and forth. And I had like 4 or 5 of these cases, and I said, I don't want to sell them for $4,000 because I know I'll get $5,000. Well, I think I ended up selling them for like $200, $300 because about 6 months later, the market just fell apart. And then
so is that right around the junk wax era of so similar to it wasn't just it wasn't just baseball cards that took a major collapse at that point in time. You were arguing that hockey and was football taking that hit as well at that time?
It was like the mid 80s when baseball was the main sport and the main cards, and then it seemed like as you got into the late 80s, early 90s, everything else had taken off. And everything was expensive. I mean, basketball was expensive. And I think, people, the second year hockey was coming out, the 91, 92 O-Pee-Chee Premier was coming out, and people were like, they would sit on 50 cases because they were going to pay their house off. And they didn't want to sell them for like $1,000 a case because I got too much money here. It's going to be worth $2,000 a case. Well, then all of a sudden that bubble just kind of burst. And then in 94, you had the baseball strike, and then the whole market was just upside down. And it's, it just, the whole thing had kind of semi-collapsed. And then that's why you see the production of that stuff in the late 90s is just so limited,
Yeah. What do you have any sort of thoughts on like what led to them making that decision to just print out boatloads? Like, did they not expect?
Well, they're in the business of making money. I mean, cops in the business of making money, and they're just going to print. They're going to print until the cows come home. That was their business, is to make money. And 1987 tops and 1988 tops, there wasn't too many varieties of product. I mean, all it was just the same stuff, and just a vending case, a rat case, a wax case, and it was.
Yeah, they were probably thinking, "What's the worst that can happen?"
Exactly, it's all sold because it was all pre-sold at that point. So yeah, what is the worst that could happen?
Right.
And they just printed, and eventually these guys got 30 cases in the basement, 40 cases in the basement, and all you really need is 792 cards to get everything. That's all you need, is just one set, and you've got everything. So why did these guys need thousands and thousands of sets in their basement, or of each player? But it was fun, but it just, the bottom fell out of it. Now you do see a resurgence of that stuff because people just like opening up packs, and these packs are all 30, 40 years old, and so that stuff has had a bit of a resurgence,
Sure,
through the whole COVID thing.
I had an old time seller friend of mine from my Gibraltar Trade Center days in the early 2000s. I actually ran into him at a show recently. I haven't seen him in probably 15 years. The last time he saw me, I was probably 10 years old. He explained this recent boom to that of 1993 when Shaquille O'Neal was a rookie. Was there a similar bump in the market at that point in time?
Yeah, it was hyperinflation. Like, all this stuff was just going crazy back then, and it still is now to this. I mean, these last 2-3 years, yeah, it definitely, there's definitely similarities, but it just feels like this is such a broad base. It just feels like the money is so much bigger, and you're getting these $5 million cards selling left and right, and these $3 million cards and $1 million cards, and it just is. It seems like before now you've got all these celebrities into it. So this boom just seems even bigger. And there are some bubbles inside this current boom, but it just that have burst already. But it's just the amount of money is just, this whole country's awash in money, and so are cards have become cool. I think we were geeks for about 20 years, and now all of a sudden it's kind of cool to be collecting cards. And it was building for like maybe the last 5-6 years. And then COVID hit, and there just wasn't as much opportunity for people to spend money. I mean, there's no concerts to go to, no movie theaters to go to, no sporting events. And so consequently, all this money was just flowing into this business. And it got a lot bigger proportion. And now you're seeing a lot of, the money is going in other places now because people can go out to eat, and everything's kind of blowing up a little bit. So, as far as our lives are becoming what they used to be, and we're back to the same options and spending our money on, there's so many different options to spend money on now versus, like, say, 12 months ago.
Sure. At least for this slight plateau that we're seeing right now. With that said, what are your expectations for the longevity of how hot the industry is right now? I think that there are some different factors that are going to allow this recent boom to kind of have a longer last to it than perhaps some from decades before, in terms of, I feel like PSA grading and just the whole grading system is probably as popular as it's ever been. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and it's great. And you got and it just goes ahead and brings legitimacy to our whole business back.
Right.
Like, say, in 91, does anybody want to, I mean, if you've got millions of dollars, why do you want to go and buy these cards? They could have been trimmed. They could have had issues with them. And you still have these people that are against, grading. And it's just ridiculous, because all it does is, if you're a guy making good money, you don't have the time to be an expert at cards. You can be, but it's difficult to know all the nuances, and you just want to be able to buy a PSA 9 and know that it's a legit card, and you're not going to have to.
And it's huge. It's a huge
buying raw cards. Yeah, buying raw cards, and then it's going to be trimmed, or some guy's pulling one over on me. And you got Baseball Card Exchange, who's got all these wrapped boxes, and now you could buy their wrapped boxes, and it just adds legitimacy to buying an open product because, Steve Hart he's great. He's great for the business, and it just adds legitimacy, and it allows people to buy with confidence.
Right. And it really opens up the world of online selling and the comfort that goes along with it. Because like you said, it takes out those variables that people are afraid of. Oh, if I spend several $1,000s on a really high-end card, I no longer have to worry about this, the seller hiding the different flaws within it. If it's encapsulated, it's PSA 10, it's PSA 9, you know what you're getting. It's almost like it's standardizing these cards into, almost like stock-like
absolutely, and it just
assets. Yeah,
it allows more money to come into the market, and it's on the verge of becoming an asset class that people will put retirement money into.
Right.
It's
absolutely.
It's just the evolution. Maybe we're becoming more like coins. I mean, there's so much money in coins, and maybe it seems like cards are funner than coins, in my opinion, at least. And so maybe, it's just growing, and it'll continue to grow. I mean, it's probably going to have some ups and downs, but the next high the next peak might be 7 or 8 years, but that stuff will be even those highs will be higher than the highs right now. It just seems,
And I think the beauty of this recent outburst is that it established another generation of collectors, fans, and entrepreneurs within the realm, which is always great for the hobby, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. All right. Well, going off of that, if you are a PSA member, you've seen Kruk Cards' ads before, and what he typically does is he's a big time collection purchaser, as well as many other things, I'm sure. With that said, I'm curious, do you still find yourself ripping open wax? And if so, what are some of your personal favorite ones to be ripping open right now?
Oh, I don't rip any
over the last few years.
As far as that goes, the hobby wouldn't have expanded as much as it has if it was up to me. Because I mean, I just think that ripping stuff open is it's like losing. The odds are against you. So I just don't really rip stuff. I think I was ripping 8990 hoops 2s or 8990 hoops boxes to get David Robinsons, and 91 upper decks to get Larry Johnson rookies back in the day. But I really don't even. I mean, I'll rip 89 Flitter baseball to see if they're air cases or not, because that's the only to see if there's air cards in them. But I'm not, and I'll buy an occasional box here and there, off at Target or whatever. But it's just for fun, and I really don't even that new stuff. I don't even really even deal with it, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, especially now with these boxes that will contain 10 cards, or even if you spend on a Prism Mega Box, that's, what is that, like, it's less than like 70 cards. In fact, I actually have, I'm not sure if I'm going to even open this up, but this is Panini 1. This is like a $450, $500 box. It's one card in here.
Exactly.
One single card.
That's great. But the odds are probably stacked against you, but you're not, I mean, it's just like everybody likes to gamble, and it's the unopened wax always seems to be worth more than what you can kind of get inside.
Totally.
On average.
Yeah. But. Well, the thing is, with the beauty of, I guess, buying a box is if you have faith in a draft class, which I kind of did with the 2020 NFL draft. That's why I picked up a couple of these, is just because I feel like I can hold on to them sealed. And then 5 years from now, I'll find somebody who's a little more risk oriented, who want to scratch off this lottery ticket and try to pull a Burrow or a Tua, Jalen Hurts, or whoever emerges out of these handful of QBs. So
yeah, I mean, the 78 Topps wax box right now is probably worth, if I would have kept those open when I was a kid, I mean, that unopened box is probably what, a $5,000-$7,000 box right now versus a typical set is like a $200-$300 set that's got typical wear that a typical kid would have played with and used. And so I've always kind of been boring as far as let's just leave the wax unopened. I like the unopened wax.
Yeah. Oh no, the first video I ever did on this page, I was mapping out the money that we all missed out on from like just the early 2000s, and I'm sure it's even crazier if we go back to I almost knocked over my mic there, to the 80s or 90s, just in terms of if we just sat on our boxes. And
we got like $11,000 out of an 80 Topps baseball wax box.
Unbelievable.
That's a lot of money. Yeah. I guess they're going for the Henderson 10, but it's just that unopened wax it's hard to find because everybody wants to open it. That's
exactly. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to get that rush. Exactly. Yep. I mean, that's the beauty of the hobby. All right. Well, with that, I guess I kind of want to shift gears a little bit here. So, like I mentioned earlier, this guy is a seasoned vet on the eBay and e-commerce selling world. And I was curious, I'm sure you know the ins and outs of eBay selling. What are some laws or guidelines that you guys operate under in terms of posting on eBay?
Well, eBay started off, I think you used to go ahead and, if you start something off at 99 cents with no limit and let it go. And if it was a $100 item, it'd probably go for, $120 to maybe $90, $120 for a $100 item. Now, a lot of times it seems like those items, may go for only $30, $40. If you let a 99 cent, you let an item start at 99 cents, you let it go, it might only go for $30, $40 when it's actually a $100 item. So what we do now is you can't just let everything go at 99 cents. You got to go ahead and price it at the value of what you think it's at. So if you got like an item that's a $100 item, we'll price it at like $120 and just discount it until it sells. And so that's one of the, you got to price protect a lot of that stuff. Now, I guess a lot of that theory has been out the window because with this massive influx with money and people wanting to get stuff, they bid stuff to crazy prices.
Yeah.
But it seems like we're getting to normal levels now where, so what we tend to do is we tend to price protect stuff. So like I said, if we think, an item's a $100 item, we'll price it at like $110 and just let people get them, buy them if they want, but now then we'll just discount them down the road.
So do you guys do a lot of auctions at this point in time? Or do you guys?
We typically do everything in an auction setting. We set it up in an auction because a lot of times we've got like 5 listers who list stuff for us. And sometimes we'll just give them a pallet of stuff and say, hey, just list this stuff. And it's a way to go ahead. And if we may have like, say, a $500 item and we might start it off at $100 and then it gets bid up to $500. But we don't want to just put it in the eBay store at $100 and not have it have a chance to get bid up. So everything we do, we'll put it in an auction setting, first and foremost. It'll have a chance to get bid up. So, but the majority of our stuff, it still doesn't get bid up. And then we just put it in our store and we just wait and we're patient. And then as things build up in our store, then we'll discount them a little bit if they're not.
So you'll start the auction at so you don't start your auctions at 99 cents. You said you'll start them at the higher prices, and if they don't get a bid, then you'll just keep knocking it down. Okay.
And then occasionally when we got built up, we got extra stuff. I'll be like, hey, let's raise some money. Let's start everything off at 99 cents. I've got a guy who manages all that, and he'll just start a whole bunch of things at like a 99 cents or $1.99, and we'll just let it go. And so he'll pick out stuff that we're kind of deep in. And that's been our trend for like, say, the last like 5-7 years. And we'll sell stuff. We'll do a lot of that around Christmas time. We'll do a lot of that around, like Black Friday type stuff. And for us, March and April is really good for selling baseball. So we'll sell $1.99 a lot of stuff, a lot of baseball cards at that time, a lot of rookie cards, a lot of cases and stuff. And it seems like traditionally baseball has been like maybe 20-30% higher during March and April. All the time. It seems like spring training, the winter's coming. The winter's been brutal for most people. Then you get spring comes, spring hope's eternal. It seems like March and April come around and the baseball product is, like I said, worth 20-30% more than it is at any other time throughout the year.
That's interesting insight. So you'll hold some of your more expensive baseball items until
we might make a push. We might have all kinds of rookies held up, and we'll be like, we might save baseball rookies for 6 or 7 months, and then I'll just give them to somebody and say, hey, just process all these rookies, have them sold, with the idea of selling them during March 15th. So we'll put them up on eBay on March 15th, and and then just hope it's a good chance to sell for a higher price, like in October. Obviously, if a guy has a tremendous year, his stuff's he's going to go up. But that's like one in 200, 1 out of 200 that a guy has a great year and is crazy, does something crazy. So that's why we just we tend.
There's some guys who sell who are selling nice year round. of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So you guys have over 30,000 items listed right now, and that got me curious. Like, how is that all like handheld listed, or like do you guys have some automated program, or like do you guys have a program in place that is just like
we use Channel Advisor to manage our stuff, so they manage all of our inventory, and we use that. It helps facilitate putting all these auctions up at once, and we've got, I don't even know the details on a lot of the stuff. I know.
Could you repeat the name of that? What was it called?
A Channel Advisor. Channel Advisor.
Okay. Never even heard of that.
So it's just like an auction facilitator. It helps us manage all of our auctions, and they take a percentage. And then so we've got a system down where we spreadsheet a bunch of stuff, and I don't even know the details on it, but it just helps us get stuff up as efficiently as possible. We can get a lot of uniforms up, and we recently bought a lot of stuff from the Eagles, and I mean, gosh, it was like, I think, what was it, like 15 pallets of jerseys. It's a lot of Carson Wentz stuff, so they don't want that stuff anymore. So we were able to buy a bunch of stuff from them, and so it took one guy, like, I think it took him like a week to sort through it all, and another guy like a week to list it all. So we've got like probably 15,000 jerseys, and we got deep quantities of these things of different sizes and different makes and different models and stuff. But we got that all up within 2 weeks. So we got like 30,000 items up. But that's obviously, there's multiples of some of them.
So will you guys ship to Channel Advisor, or I guess I can look into that system myself?
No,
or do you just,
no.
Okay.
No, we'll ship to Amazon and have Amazon. We use the fulfilled by Amazon, which you probably know is Amazon Prime. So that's.
Yeah, I do some Amazon selling myself, or am at least trying to establish it. I'm swinging and missing a little bit.
It's difficult. You got to keep at it. It's hard.
And there's a lot of different factors in it, and it was like time consuming. So I think I'm kind of weaning off it a little bit, but I am familiar with the system. Yeah. Well, I remember our first text conversation. You were like, I'm a little busy at the moment. And then you sent me a picture of a truck bed filled to the brim with memorabilia. So it's kind of crazy, the bulk that you'll be picking up in terms of your memorabilia. Oftentimes, do you guys work directly with the teams themselves to be getting these, or I'm sure there's collectors all over the nation, but
yeah, occasionally. I mean, that was I think I just bought a jersey, so I was just kind of finishing that up. I had some stuff in North Carolina still, and that was like the tail end of what we bought. We ended up I think we figured that deal out in October of 2020. We loaded up 4 semis in October, 453 footers filled with stuff. And then in January, we had to go back there and get the rest of the stuff out. And so we had 6 more tractor trailers filled up with stuff then. And then I think when I was texting with you, it was maybe April-ish. And I think we had like maybe, it was a Penske. I think I was filling up a Penske and driving that back and shipping some of it back. But there was a lot of stuff. This guy had collected stuff for, he was hoarding stuff for 30, 40 years. And,
he was waiting for the big day, and you were that big day. That's crazy.
Well, he passed away, unfortunately. He's a good friend of ours. Oh. Unfortunately, he passed away. And, but he wasn't looking to sell out, really. He was just he was even more of a hoarder than I was. He was just, the guy would just sell enough stuff to live off of every year. And he had a couple employees, and, but he was buy stuff from the teams directly for 30 years, and you just accumulate stuff,
Right.
And so,
especially since I feel there obviously has always been a market for this kind of stuff, but decades ago, I'm sure it was a lot easier to come by than might be nowadays.
I don't know, maybe, I guess maybe, well, especially now, I mean, manufacturers don't have any excess product at all. So there's no closeouts really, because everything's getting bought, right? There's nothing excess. There's not excess product. And back in the mid 80s to late 80s, there's all kind. Well, in the early 80s, you'd have all kinds of closeouts because this stuff was being overproduced, and there'd be closeouts in the early 80s to mid 80s. But yeah, I mean, fortunately, like if something doesn't sell, we're just we'll be patient and we'll just wait, because it seems like we have an appreciating asset. It just does seem to appreciate with inflation, and we do get some bumps in this stuff over time, usually. So, I mean, if you're selling computer parts, I think you got 10-year-old or 20-year-old computer parts, they become obsolete, and then you got a whole warehouse full of nothing, so at least it seems like people want to go back and relive their childhood, and in some of what we have, if it's a dog now, it could have its day in 5-6 years or what have you, or maybe 10 years, or so we play the long game on a lot of that stuff, and we just kind of wait and just bury it.
That is great advice. Yeah, the stuff doesn't really grow outdated. So yeah, that is a great point. The fact that it's not a depreciating asset, like it's still staying tangible. Well, you mentioned the fact that your late friend was a bit of a hoarder and collector himself, and then you mentioned that you yourself do a little bit of the same. So that is a great segue into this topic right here, which is list off 2 or 3 items, or go to 10 items if you want, from your personal collection that are just off limits. No questions asked. Doesn't matter if somebody puts a blank check in front of you. What are some of your personal items?
Oh, I don't really have much. I don't have much that's that wows me anymore. Like my dad and I bought. We actually just went to it was kind of odd because we went to the safety deposit box today. We had to put more names on it, and we've got a 1915 caramel cob. It's probably it's a SGC 70. And we bought that together a little bit ago, so we'll probably keep that for a while. So it's a nice card. It's a really hard caramel card. I collect uniforms, so it seems like every single time I go ahead and buy a uniform deal, I'll pick a couple pieces out and just set those aside. So I do collect uniforms, and I just put that stuff aside. And I do have kind of my vision too is like I've accumulated a lot of this junk wax, and I think I'm going to go ahead and I guess my long-term goal is just to pass it on to my family, and just maybe who knows what. I mean, in 50 years, what's 87 Tops wax case going to be worth, or 89 Dunner's wax cases. So I mean, that's nothing special, but it's just stuff I do want to hold because, like I said, I think it's an appreciating asset. As time goes on, the stuff will appreciate, and I do hold that stuff. It's nothing exciting, but it's just stuff I'll hold probably forever in some sort of quantity.
Is that the caramel cob? Is that the 1909 one?
No, 1915. It's a 1915 American caramel. It was kind of.
I don't know. So was that just like a major pack, or the only player in the game at the time? I'm curious. I'm not too familiar with vintage baseball or vintage sports at all.
I think the way I understand it, I could be wrong on this, but the way I thought, like if they're trying to sell caramel, so you buy a chunk of caramel from the local store back in 1915, and then with it they would give you a baseball card. So I thought there's something going on like that. They didn't get to the point of packaging it up like the tobacco, but it was just given away as part of a caramel purchase.
Unbelievable.
I believe.
Well, and because you said yours graded over 70, which equates to like a PSA 7.
No, it's more like it's SGC when they used to. I think SGC has now gone to a single digit number scale. So okay. I think it's more like a 5.
Okay. Right. Okay. That makes sense. Because I always thought those scales kind of correlated with the different echelons of the PSA 1 to 10 scale.
A 70 sounds, I think a 70 sounds better than it is. A 70 is more like an X-Men card.
Yeah. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's not like drop to 0. It's more like, it's more like a 5, 5.5 or something like that.
Sure. There's been a semi-recent new development in the world of buying and selling in sports memorabilia, and that is NBA Top Shot, the NFT space. Are you familiar with NBA Top Shot? And I'm curious whether or not you had any sort of fascination in it at all. There was a pretty major tank in value that recently took place, but I still see some potential. I personally am not involved in it. It's tough to get involved in it. I remember I had to wait a couple months just to get an account. But with that said, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm old school. I kind of don't get it, but I do. I understand that things evolve, and it's not tangible. I can't touch it. I just don't. I mean, I could see myself maybe buying it eventually, but I just, as of right now, I haven't. I know I had a couple of kids that worked for me. They went ahead and they got some bots, and they'll get a LeBron James card, and they'll be able to sell it. I mean, they get a pack, and they open the pack up, and they paid $100 for the pack, and they could sell it for $1,500 or $1,800 for a LeBron James, shot. But I think that's what it was. Yeah, but it's. I just don't get it, and I haven't really pursued it yet.
Right. I think we're in a similar spot with that. But I do. I mean, I just believe in our ability to let the digital world continue kind of, running the helm here. And I do see some potential in stocking up on these, I guess, a little bit. And I think right now would be a decent time to, because I'm in some Facebook groups of some big time buyers and sellers, and I'm just kind of a fly on the wall because, like I said, I'm not involved. But there are some people who bought in heavily at first and have been getting absolutely roasted and torched because of it.
I would think so. Yeah, it might be the time to jump in then. I don't know.
Might just be. All right. Well, with that, I also want to discuss, I see on your Instagram page, which everybody who is listening, go take a look at his Instagram page. It's some pretty impressive stuff day in and day out. In fact, didn't you just post 86 Jordan today?
Massimo's handling that. I'm not sure what he put up today. It's up to Massimo or Amber.
Unbelievable. I haven't seen Massimo since high school. That's outstanding that he's working with you. That's great. I knew he was always in this space. Him and I stay in touch a little bit, but like I said, I haven't seen him in person. That's cool. So you will occasionally be posting Pokemon, which I myself have been diving into and learning up on. I still have a whole mess of them to get graded. I haven't gotten anything graded yet. But with that, what has your success been looking like in the Pokemon realm? And then do you have like a number one highest selling Pokemon card that you know of off the top of your head?
We right now we got we got a Charizard from 99 Charizard, first printing. I think it's a PSA 7. We just got that graded. We bought a run from a guy. I think I really don't even, I kind of go with whatever gets thrown at me. So I recently, I think in January, I bought he had the first 16 sets, of the Pokemon, the complete set. So then gave all the stuff to Eric. He goes through it and he's just submitting stuff to get graded. So it just kind of fell in our lap. That's what we go after, kind of what falls in our lap. And probably beyond that, we still got probably probably 500 or 700 cards into PSA. We're waiting to get back because we're getting them graded. So, we got that whole bottleneck that we're waiting, and we got another probably 500 Pokemon cards to send in that they're not accepting cards right now at PSA. So
yeah,
so we're waiting. So we did get the Charizard back, and
was that Charizard holographic? Do you know?
No, not holographic. It's a first print. So,
I was gonna say that'd be a whole different discussion, but interesting. Have you seen success in like the Yu-Gi-Oh realm or Magic the Gathering, anything like that?
I kind of missed all that stuff too. No, I didn't. I mean, we'll buy it and sell it and just kind of flip it, but I haven't really, stocked up on any of that stuff. And I'm not really too familiar with that stuff at all. I mean, we'll buy it when we can, and we just basically get it graded if it seems like a good opportunity,
right?
Or just sell it raw, just whatever presents itself.
When you guys take on a collection of, hypothetically, somebody's got 20,000 cards. Do you just blindly purchase, or do you take the time? Like, do you have a period where you're allowed to kind of sift through it before you decide?
Yeah, we definitely. You get offered stuff all the time, and you're trying to go ahead and have people create a list. Sometimes you'll get a list that's made by an accountant or an engineer, and it's just perfect, and it lines up with every single card they have. And sometimes you just get pictures from a guy who's a hoarder who can't even sleep in his bed because he's got stuff all over his bed, and you just kind of, everyone's different. Everything is different. You would like to get a list because, you can get a feel for if people if you're on the same page with people before you travel out, out of state. But majority of the time, if we're going to travel out of state, we'll work out a deal with somebody. And, it's like I said, if you get a list, it's good to have a list, and it shows that you get an idea what they're asking, what they want, and what they feel they have. And it's a good start to the whole process. And so, yes, you do, and sometimes if you're just driving by, you would just stop by somebody's house and just, if it sounds like it's that good potential, you'll spend a couple hours. A lot of times you spend a half a day or a day looking through their whole collection, and then you make them an offer and you work out a deal. Sure.
When did you guys start doing that? Like the bulk purchasing?
I think
right away.
It was after, because I was thinking about that too this morning. I think I would just hustle around and go to the card shows and buy and sell, and back when I was in college and stuff. And then I got out of college. I think it was like the Atlanta National in 1992. A guy named Roger Pavey. He was a big football collector, and he had some health issues, and he had a basement full of stuff. And basically, him and I went through it, spent the afternoon looking through it. made him an offer. He wanted to be done with it. And so he said he sold it to me, and I got a Penske, 26-foot Penske, loaded it up, and just drove it back to Michigan. And so it had been back in 1992 probably is when I would have started that. And it's always seemed to work. You just, because people, a lot of times if they're selling stuff, sometimes they will sell the best stuff, but a lot of times they don't want to. They want to just, when they're out, they're out. They want to be done, and you just, do what they want, and so everybody's a little bit different, because sometimes people got a lot of ties to this stuff, and they don't want to go through the pain of selling stuff, sell a chunk here, a chunk there. They just want to be done. And when you're done, you're done, and that's what we found,
Well, I mean, anybody in this hobby knows just how time consuming making their way through a box of cards would be, especially somebody who's unfamiliar with the market and has to do the research on every single card that they're sifting through. So it makes sense that they would just kind of turn it over to you.
And we'll bring liquidity to something. I mean, a guy's got a collection. He's been collecting stuff over 20 years. It's a big range of stuff to evaluate. And, we'll try to, bring liquidity to an illiquid asset in a sense. It's a pile of stuff. And, a lot of times people want to go into business. They want to open up their own card shop or what have you. And, over the course of 30, 40 years, a lifetime, things change. And sometimes people just want to retire and be done with it and clean up, some of the loose ends. But we're an option for them.
That's where you come in. All right. Well, going off of that, what are some common mistakes that you will see, when somebody does hand you their massive collection and you guys are going through it? That could be common mistakes that you'll see that impact somebody's collection's condition. What are some common, I guess, sets or things that they'll undervalue, things of that nature? I guess I'll let you take the floor on that.
As far as going ahead, and I mean, like I've seen stuff where people have had, $5,000 cases that are kept like in a chicken coop, and the gum melts and the whole case is destroyed. So, I mean, you got to protect your stuff at least. It seems like, San Francisco is like the best area to have stuff in because it just seems like it's kind of a constant temperature. But when you get stuff, like I said, I think we bought some stuff from down south, and this guy had a couple cases in a chicken coop, and when they weren't protect, he didn't take care of the stuff.
So you're telling me that the gum will melt within packs, and that's a somewhat common problem that you guys will run into.
Well, it happened once or twice. It's just like something I can remember. Okay. Oh my God, it's a $5,000 case. I think it was 82 Dunder's Golf. It was a good case at the time, and then all the gum had leaked and just destroyed everything.
Unbelievable.
You just gotta go ahead, and you should have brought it inside. Like in the climate controlled area is much better.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to be. This is a tangent. I'm kind of excited to be seeing golf coming back into play with the SP Authentic just put out a set, right?
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know. It seems like every 10 years they come out with something, and then
yeah.
like 10 or 15.
Well, I'm surprised it took such a long hiatus because it was, like I said, off the shelves from I think it was like 2004 or 2005 to like right now. And I was talking with a shop owner from Grand Slam Sports in Sterling Heights. Okay. If you're familiar with Dave. Yeah. And he was telling me that, I mean, SP Authentic, he personally ripped open like every box of it, and stuff has just been flying. He said the flip and all the cards has been awesome. He actually pulled a Tiger Woods auto, which he didn't have in person as much as I would have loved to see that. But yeah, SP Authentic Golf. And then I think there's another golf box coming out pretty soon, but it's exciting. It's cool.
It's good. Yeah, absolutely. The market's raging. You're going to have all kinds of different stuff come out now. It's just the market's on fire.
Yeah. Well, and then another perfect segue. This is my last question here was Prism this year. Panini Prism put out UFC, WNBA, and soccer for, I believe it was the first time for all of those. From a man who has seen it all, what are your thoughts on the future of these sports?
Well, I think it's got potential. Absolutely. I mean, soccer's huge. I mean, UFC, it seems like ESPN is just an infomercial for UFC stuff. Every time I pop on an ESPN app, I just see UFC stuff. It seems like they're in bed with them, and then there's going to be all kinds of, WWF or UFC stuff going on, and there's going to be characters that pop out that are going to be hot. So I think that stuff's got tons of potential.
Yeah. A while ago, I actually purchased a bunch of, it was like late 2000s UFC. It was like a pretty low budget, low end set. And I mean, some of the higher end cards from it are selling for, a couple $100. And like I said, these are really cheap cards. So I think what's really interesting with UFC and kind of why I see a lot of potential in it is the sport is going from just kind of being like a fighting league where you don't really individually pay attention to one fighter to they're doing a lot of personal branding to the point where people are creating ties and affiliations with individual fighters rather than just the league as a whole. And I think that plays in beautifully with the world of cards, obviously, because those strong ties to a certain fighter is what's going to drive up those prices. So I really like the future UFC.
That's cool. And if they're marketing themselves and they're being, tight with their fans and making strides with their fans, it'll blow up. I think people told me that's the way NASCAR used to be in the early days with like Earnhardt and like those guys. The race would be done, and those guys would go into the crowd and they would sign autographs and just hang out with the fans. And I don't think that happens anymore. But I mean, that's why NASCAR had it was huge for a while. But it seems like it's slowed down. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different ways to make money in this business, and there's so much. Yeah, it's so many different ways. I mean, like totally. You said, you just got to follow what you believe in. Yeah.
Well, actually, going off that personal branding, in a class at Michigan State, which I understand you're a Sparty as well. Go white. And David Stern, when he first stepped into the commissioner role, I believe it was mid '80s. That was a huge emphasis of his, was the individual marketing of players. And I think that's when you started to see the emergence of Larry Magic and Michael a little bit, and the super strong ties that you've almost never seen before in the history of the league. And there were definitely marketing efforts before he came in, but these ones were catching ground because they were tied to outstanding athletes rather than just a league of outstanding athletes, I guess. Exactly. And that's more exciting for people.
Absolutely. So, you can relate more to, I mean, that's why maybe hockey's slowing down a little bit, because hockey, I'm not sure if it's slowing down. It just never caught on as much as like maybe say basketball and baseball and football. But the NBA is on the cutting edge of marketing themselves more so than any other of the sports, I believe. Even to this day with Adam Silver, I think he's doing a great job.
They back-to-back outstanding commissioners. I'm not sure who's in place before Stern, but 2 for 2 in the last two. I mean, what Silver managed to do with that bubble last year that was nothing short of incredible. He just erected that out of nowhere, and the next thing you know, there's playoff basketball in the middle of quarantine. Unbelievable. But nevertheless, I think that is going to completely wrap it up. We said half an hour. We're approaching just shy of 50 minutes here. I figured we'd go over. But really appreciate you taking out the time to introduce yourself and hop on here with me. Was really looking forward to talking with you and gaining some of your insight. It got to the point where I was just kind of asking my own personal questions to help guide my eBay endeavors. I've kind of planted the seeds on that, and have been hoping to see them blossom a little bit here moving forward. But
I appreciate you spending the time and asking me these questions and being interested. It's great. And if you want, anytime you want to come by, like I said, come on by, stop on by, and just text me up, and I'm around tomorrow or next week, whatever. You want to stop?
Yeah, my parents still live in Rochester. You were like walking distance from their place, so I'll have to come knock on the door sometime. Yeah,
absolutely.
Right on. All right, well, let's let's wrap it up here. And like I said, I appreciate you. Once again, everybody go follow the Kruk Cards on Instagram, and then let me get this banner off here so everybody can see his eBay page as well. It is just, it's Kruk Cards Inc. I don't know why I used a white font on a light background, but Kruk Cards Inc. on eBay. I mean, just go to see the fact that this man's got almost 300,000 sales. That in itself is worth looking at. He's got over 30,000 items on sale right now. And then, like I said, his Instagram page is fantastic too. The Kruk Cards, Metro Detroit legend, national legend. You see him in the PSA magazines. I came into this, I thought that your ads in PSA were just a regional thing. And you told me that that's a national reach. So
yeah,
it's impressive, man. You're nationwide. Everybody knows the name. But like I said, I appreciate your time, and we'll be staying in touch. I appreciate you, George.
Thanks, Andrew.